Selamünaleyküm.
Aleykümselam.
Selamünaleyküm selam.
Beyler. Neden herkes burada ya? Neden herkes burada ya?
Ne yapak yani?
Oğlum az önce çıkarken 3 kere çarptılar, 3 kere tamir ettim.
Yok abi.
Selamünaleyküm selamünaleyküm.
Aleykümselam, aleykümselam.
Aleykümselam. Aleyküm.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selam aleyküm. Ve aleykümselam.
Oğlum 2 şerit diyorlar, niye 3. araba giriyor? Çek.
England another advantage.
See this one moment that I found very interesting where she's in the car with her mum and her team, and she's leaving this meet and greet with some industry people who she obviously had to meet their kids, and she was very tired and she looked exhausted. It had been posted on her Instagram in a comment saying, my friend was at a Billie Eilish meet and greet and she was a brat, or something negative about her. And you see how much of an effect that has on her, because unlike previous pop stars back in the 90s, you know, and your Britneys and your Justin Biebers, they may not have had control over what the tabloids said about them. But now Billie Eilish doesn't have control over how other people are constantly surveilling her and talking about her.
We're always looking forward to the next thing. We're never thinking about what's happening right now. And this is happening right now. We are never going to be in this moment ever again.
She'd garnered this very young fan base. It was like this massive movement from teenagers literally just listening to her lyrics and listening to the way in which she spoke about mental health and the issues facing her generation. And the sort of thing that does upset her isn't necessarily looking bad on a photo shoot or...
She'll be stuck in a corner somewhere. But it's getting them to trust you enough that they will sell you your dog back, which is basically what you have to do. You have to buy your own dog back.
And have you seen evidence of dogs being brought back?
Yeah, I've helped families get 4 dogs back now. I've helped 4 different families, but their lives are never the same again, because it's something that stays with you. You know, and one of the little dogs we got back, if we hadn't got him back when we did, he would have died, because he came back and a week later came down with meningitis.
Of not wanting to do this. I can't look sad, I have to be always smiling, because otherwise people hate me.
Billy passed her test. She can drive now.
I can be alone though, that's what's important.
Both Britney and Billie were a very similar age when they came into fame. Obviously, Britney has no control almost over
Young's
crime is what it is.
Yeah,
Who
it's
are these
organised
people?
crime.
Who are these people? You're in the Surrey area. Who are these people who are up to this?
I know who a lot of these people are, but it's, you know, not appropriate to say. But it is definitely organised crime. And now we're getting to the point now where they're not just stealing the dogs from kennels, they're attacking elderly people and taking their dogs from them.
Hazel, who called in before, petrified of going out for a walk, age 70, senior citizen, 2 dogs, and she's now terrified of leaving the house. It's heartbreaking.
With me, when I walk my dogs, I have something in my pocket, and that is the only way I feel safe to walk my dogs. And the law has got to change, because if your dog is stolen tomorrow, it is currently the same as somebody stealing your mobile phone. That's got to change. They are part of our family, you know, and it just frustrates me so much that even if somebody is caught, the chances of them going to prison for doing this are...
Well, it sounds like I might have to look at the rules in Parliament. I don't actually know what you get for stealing a dog. I don't know what the sentencing is. I should as Shadow Justice Minister, but I've got to tell you, I don't know. And I hope the laws are strong enough, because I think it's a very serious crime indeed.
Yeah, it is, and it's heartbreaking for the owners, because like I say, they never get over it, because if you don't get your dog back, it is always in the back of your mind, isn't it, what happened?
Karen, thank you so much for calling in and for sharing that with us, and thank you for all that you're doing in the Surrey area to deal with this crime. You're listening to David Lammy here on LBC. The time now is 5:30 and it's time for the news.
The Chancellor will promise more help to get first-time house buyers onto the property ladder in next week's budget. Rishi Sunak will set out a new scheme for mortgages to be given to people with deposits of just 5%. Captain Sir Tom Moore has been laid to rest at a small family ceremony in his home county of Bedfordshire. Soldiers from the Yorkshire Regiment carried the Army's veteran's coffin, and he was honoured with a gun salute. Among the tributes being paid to Captain Sir Tom around the UK were homemade window displays, flags flying at half-mast and bell ringing in churches. The UK has reported another 290 coronavirus deaths and 7,437 new cases. That's lower than last Saturday, when the daily figures revealed 445 people had died and more than 10,000 had tested positive. The weather, a mostly dry evening and night, a frost developing under clear skies in central and western areas, low cloud with fog in parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland and eastern England, lows of 1 degree.
This is LBC. Whether you produce lamb in Ceredigion or beef in Aberdeenshire, the UK government can help you grow your sales abroad. Because businesses like yours can benefit from trade deals which are...
Think of us, if you will.
From his control, but the referee and the TMO judged it wasn't a knock-on. Liam Williams proceeded to score, and Wales have their 2 tries. England have hit back through Anthony Watson.
You serve, you backhand, you topspin, you get your phone out. Oh, multitasking. You switch energy. You switch customers have their energy usage saved, so you can switch in as little as 1 click. What you do while you switch, well, it's up to you. You game, set and match.
Visit uswitch.com now to switch in as little as 1 click. Uswitch. Energy, broadband, mobiles.
The latest government guidance requires everyone to stay at home. TfL services continue to run for those who need to travel for legally permitted reasons. If you need to travel, please walk or cycle if you can. If you are using public transport, please plan ahead and travel at quiet times, which at the weekend are before noon and after 6 p.m. You must wear a face covering at all times on public transport unless you are exempt. Check before you travel. Search TfL Journey Planner. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
If you've had a cough for 3 weeks or more, and it isn't COVID-19, don't just ignore it. It could be a warning sign. A cough you just can't shake off could be a sign of cancer. It's probably nothing serious, but finding cancer early makes it more treatable. Just contact your GP practice. Your NHS is here to see you safely. Help us help you.
Imagine if switching mobile networks was as easy as this.
Weather report, temperatures drop by 5 degrees, rapid wolf.
Now it is. Just send a text to your mobile network, then you're ready to leave and switch to Sky Mobile in an instant. Plans start from £6 a month with unlimited streaming on all Sky apps. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
For full terms and conditions, see sky.com/mobile switch.
We're so happy that you're so happy. We're all so happy. Happy. We're so happy that you're so happy. We're all so happy. Happy Drains.
Happy Drains, as a which trusted trainer with literally thousands of glowing reviews on Check a Trade, we'll sort any drainage problem. Our engineers are local and here for you 24/7. Click happydrains.co.uk.
How does it feel when you stop smoking?
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
It feels good.
I was so proud of myself.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel a lot richer. I just feel fitter and healthier.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
David Lammy on LBC. Text 84850.
It's David Lammy here on LBC, and following this huge rise of 170% in dog thefts, I'm discussing this issue on the show in this hour. I'm joined by Stan Rawlinson, who's a behaviourist for doglistener.co.uk. Stan, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, David.
So, Stan, what's your sense of the extent of the problem?
Well, the 170% is actually incorrect. That is only reported to the police. And quite often the police are not recording this as a theft of an animal. It's recorded as a theft under the 1968 Theft Act, which is widely outdated. And in that Theft Act, a dog is seen as property, not as a sentient animal, a thinking being in any way or form. It is exactly the same as someone stealing your laptop or your mobile phone. And that's how it's perceived. And it's reported as a theft. So say they've stolen a whole litter of puppies, which they're doing continually at this moment in time, it would be put down as one theft.
Stan, I've actually, because I didn't know the figures here, I got my researcher to find them, and I'm told that the maximum sentence for the theft is 7 years imprisonment.
That's absolutely correct, but not just for a dog. That is under the Theft Act for any theft. Now, the problem is, I'm an expert witness under the Dangerous Dogs Act as well,
right,
as being a behaviourist. So I've been involved in a lot of these cases. I have never known a dog thief get much more than a £250 fine. That is the common fine they get for dog theft.
So they serve...
More of the same from the referee.
In the scenes. What happened, and this is the interesting bit, is a group of traders got together on a social media platform and decided to try and take on these hedge funds. And they effectively bigged up GameStop and said, come on everyone. They sort of rallied the troops, and they managed to sort of pump artificially, if you like, the share price of GameStop, which, to the abject horror of the hedge funds, started to rise and continued to rise, and actually went to really quite crazy highs at the end of the month. And so, a very new phenomena in that we have not seen social media being used as an enabler to gather together an army, if you will, of retail people to pump that price up. And of course, if you've got a short position, you're going to need to mitigate your losses. You can't just watch that share price climb and climb and climb. And so a lot of the hedge funds needed to close out those positions at a significant and very painful financial loss.
Jack, was it a painful loss for the hedge funds?
Yes, I think there were definitely, and we've seen the names of those hedge funds being mentioned, and one particularly Melvin Capital, who did suffer a very painful loss in January. But this was not a phenomenon that was wide over across the whole hedge fund industry. This was a few firms, a few funds that were carrying that short position. It was a lesson, I think, going right across the hedge fund industry about the risks.
Well, look, GameStop attracted a lot of attention and a lot of investors, but it is just the one example of wider trading habit. Maybe a fad, maybe a long-term change, but when you see Bitcoin advertised on buses, you do know something is going on. There are a lot of young people, anecdotally mostly men, who think it is fun or profitable, and we need to hear from them. And I managed to catch up with two who were encouraged to invest by following forums on Reddit. Mo from Germany, Danny from Cardiff, and they told me why they decided to have it.
I am a 28-year-old PhD student from Pakistan, and I'm currently working on my PhD in Germany in the field of artificial intelligence. I have always had a very cursory interest in the investment game. However, it was increased a little bit more once I started making a disposable income. And the final trigger point for me was access to these trading apps, which made things so much easier. Once I heard about the GME thing going crazy, I thought, you know what, maybe it is time that I actually pull the trigger and put some money into the investment game. Of course, I did not go for the GME stock, but that definitely was a point where it kind of reinvigorated the interest that I had latent somewhere in my head.
GME, of course, is the code for GameStop, which is
yes,
what got us all interested and made us aware of how. Mo, before I go to Danny, tell us how much you have invested and what winnings or losses you think you've made as we speak here today.
I started off with a sum of 300 euros. I very quickly lost all of that. That's when I switched over to a little bit more secure trading. and there I have about 800 euros there. It's down about 40 euros, but the investment window for this is a couple of years, so I do not care about the daily trends.
Let's talk to Danny then. Danny, give us the similar, your backstory and what you've been up to.
So I'm 25, I just work in a little coffee shop. I got into trading mainly through word of mouth and my Twitter feed just past the start of the year. I see a lot about the GME stuff and everything, and seeing my friends get involved in crypto and investing just seemed like the right time to get involved.
How much have you put at stake, and where are you? Are you up or down at the moment?
So I only put in £60 because that's all I had at the time, and I put it into the Nokia stock because I couldn't afford the GameStop stock at the time. The Nokia was one of the so-called meme stocks that they are focusing on. It was Nokia, Bed Bath & Beyond, BlackBerry, and maybe some others. But I put in £60 into Nokia, and it's currently about £10 down.
Okay, so neither of you are in the big money as we speak at this point. Can I ask where you get the information? So I'm hearing it's word of mouth on your side, Danny. Are you researching? Are you getting it from social media, these Reddit, subreddit groups where people are pushing stocks and suggesting stocks? What about you, Mo?
Oh, for me, I pulled the trigger once the meme stocks were there, but I did not buy into any of them. I went for precious metals, and now I'm getting my information a little bit based on my own expectations. The only tip that I have received from Reddit, which is not the Wall Street Bets subreddit, but rather the investment subreddit, was a women's medicine company called ETS2MP in America. That's the one stock that I have bought based on information from Reddit, but then I actually did a little bit more my own research and saw that, yeah, that's actually the company that's probably worth investing into.
Danny, are you doing any research of your own, or are you tending to follow what other people are doing?
Not particularly systematically, no. I haven't done as much research as Mo. I'm basically just following the crowd and trying to make a quick buck.
Danny, don't worry about you. Okay, do you know what you're doing? Do you know that you can lose money as well as make it? Are you dreaming of driving a Porsche, or are you very aware that there aren't that many free lunches out there in the world? Danny,
yeah, no, I'm definitely aware that it's not a ticket to being rich. The main reason I got involved is because I just love the whole chaos behind it all.
Beating the hedge funds, were you on that side of it?
Yeah, I'm well interested in kind of flipping stuff upside down and stuff like that. I wanted to get involved.
What about you, Mo? Do I need to worry about you?
No, because I only take away the money from my monthly paycheck that I'm okay losing. My current plan is for every paycheck I take out 300 euros, I put it into my portfolio, and I do it over the next few years while I have disposable income coming in.
Is this a lockdown thing for you, Danny? Because obviously there's not as much to do this time.
Yes, I think that's a pretty major driving force in this whole thing, I think, to be honest, for a lot of people.
Do you agree with that, Mo?
I agree, yes, because under this lockdown situation we have a lot more time on our hands, and we're not spending our money outside, right? So we're not going clubbing, we're not going partying, and we are kind of forced to be inside. Therefore, we have to find something to do with our idle hands, and there, when you find a bandwagon like this, it's very tempting to get onto it.
Do you think of yourself as keeping this up, or do you think this is just a little bit of fun in your 20s? And Danny first.
I definitely feel like the trend is investing will be a bigger part of our lives in the future for young people. I feel like this is only just the start, really, so that everyone's hearing about it and having a go and making mistakes and learning about it.
What about you, Mo?
I completely agree with what Danny just said. I will keep investing some money into my portfolios for the foreseeable future, while I also have a more traditional retirement fund. Can I just offer like a very, very quick, not a financial advice to Danny?
Yeah, please do.
Danny, this is not financial advice. I'm not held accountable for anything, but I would hold on to Nokia because they just got like the 5G contracts. So I think
good
they
to
might
know.
have
Good to know.
But then again, it's your money. I'm not giving you financial advice. I have to disclose that.
Mo and Danny, two young Reddit traders. I'm still with Holly Mackay, Boring Money, and Jack Ingalls from the Alternative Investment Management Association. Fascinated in your reactions to what we've just heard. Holly?
Oh, where to start, Evan? Mo reminds me of myself if I think back to the dot-com boom and bust in 2000 when I invested in all sorts of things. Like my worst investment then ever was Sausage Software in Australia, which I rode all the way up and all the way down, and I had a margin loan on it too, so it was a painful learning curve. I think, what do I take from that? I think you're absolutely right when you gently say to them, is this gambling or is it investing? They're doing some spicy stuff, and I think what I fear moving down the track, I don't know whenever, but at some point markets will turn south. We've been in a bull market for a very long time, and my fear is that all the newcomers to the world of investing, will get burned, and then we'll talk to them in 10 years' time and they'll say, oh no, I don't do investing, it's like gambling. And so I think we've got, the industry as well has a huge responsibility to try and continue to talk to these newcomers and perhaps persuade them to do something a little bit more, dare I say it, boring. Because there's too much alchemy everywhere, Evan, and we'll get onto this. This is what I don't particularly like about hedge funds, and it's what I don't particularly like about some of the day traders out there, all this technical analysis, and it's people trying to be too smart and over-engineer things. And when we over-engineer things, they break.
Well, you might be aiming that at Jack, who represents the hedge funds. But Jack, before we get into that, tell us what your reaction to those two.
Yeah, Holly has thrown down the gauntlet, hasn't she? I wasn't expecting that. I think what was really interesting in hearing from those, and it's just a different approach they're taking. It really struck me that Mo is performing a lot more analysis, I suppose, on his investment decisions, whereas Danny just seems to be a lot more reactive to what was going on there. But they're obviously just two of thousands and thousands of people who have come into this over the past year or so. And as Holly pointed out earlier on, it's so true that these so-called retail investors have grown in numbers just in the past 12 months alone, particularly around the pandemic. And by the way, I think it's a very healthy thing. It's the so-called democratization of markets. I think is healthy. But I think what is really important, markets are quite complex. They do require an understanding of the risks, and I would say deep analysis and research of what future outcomes might be for any bets, call them investments, that you are going to make. And that requires understanding, and I think very much it requires education. What worries me is that because of the nature of so-called pumping up stock values, which come through social media posts on these so-called meme stocks, that people who come to that party late, or as I think Mo described it as a bandwagon, people who get on that bandwagon late could end up nursing some very significant losses. And that can't be a good thing if those risks are not well enough understood. So it goes back to educational job that's going to be needed.
Is there any social purpose to this kind of trading? Can you see much social purpose in this, Holly? Apart from people having fun, spending their money on that, do you see much?
I think, Evan, that's a really interesting question, and it kind of fundamentally goes to the heart of why perhaps I made some negative comments about hedge funds earlier. The most fundamentally fantastic thing about investing is that we take our money and we invest in innovation and growth, and that is seen at the moment in the world of sustainable investing as an example, and that's all positive and engaging. And when I hear people talking about short selling, they've got no interest in the intrinsic value of a company. They're not creating things. It's purely parasitic and I think ultimately destructive. So to your point, what is the social purpose of it all? It's all just a game. It's sort of smoke and mirrors, isn't it? And this alchemy stuff. And in a way, the guys that were the ringleaders at Reddit, they're displaying the same traits, Evan, that's got finance to the same awful situation it's in. It's full of people with big egos, trying to be cleverer than the next person, and losing track, losing sight of what we're all supposed to be doing here, which is fundamentally supporting progress. So that's my 2 pence worth on it.
That is a fascinating perspective. Come on then, Jack. What about you?
So of course I'm going to disagree with Holly on that, and not just because I represent hedge funds, but what's the social purpose? That was the question. 2 things. One, savings investments are really there for a principal purpose of producing long-term income streams and security, and more often than not in later life, particularly around pension age. Hedge funds, their principal client base is pension funds. So they're not just doing this for their own self-interest. They have clients, and those clients, right at the end of it, are individuals. What they're seeking to do is to provide a superior return to investments in the stock market, in this example. The second thing, what else are markets for? Markets are there to allow companies, both new as well as very well established, the ability to be able to raise money through either share issuance or bond issuance, which allows them to continue to invest for growth themselves. So markets in a free open economy allow companies access to capital which they wouldn't otherwise get. That has to be good. And where hedge funds can come in is by being able to point out when stocks are overvalued, and therefore it's an important part of price discovery that they should be able to take short positions. One of the most recent examples of that is the payments company in Germany, Wirecard, where hedge funds had taken short positions really for quite a considerable period of time as they began to uncover these findings about the company. So very, very social use in the marketplace. A canary in the coal mine, if you like, for these sort of things going on.
So
if I might, Evan,
go.
One thing we can see categorically is that costs are falling and margin pressure is finally, and it's a welcome thing, coming to this industry, and people can access well-diversified portfolios online for less than 0.5% a year. And those portfolios have been doing just as well, if not better, than the hedge funds that will cost sometimes up to 10 times as much.
And on that note, we shall draw this discussion to a close on a fantastically interesting new development in the way markets are working, with some short-term and long-term implications. Let me thank my guests: Holly Mackay, founder of Boring Money; Jack Ingalls, chief executive of the Alternative Investment Management Association; and to our Reddit retail investors, Danny and Mo. Thank you to all of them. The Bottom Line is made in partnership with the Open University. Join me next week when I'll be back with more guests.
The Bottom Line was presented by Evan Davis and produced by Julie Ball. We're now ready for the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 1725, today Saturday the 27th of February. There are warnings of gales in Fitzroy, Bailey, Faroes and South East Iceland. The general synopsis at midday: high South Wales 1043, expected Humber 1040 by midday Sunday. The area forecast for the next 24 hours: Viking, westerly or southwesterly 3 to 5, occasionally 6 in northwest, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. North Utsira, westerly becoming variable 2 to 4, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. South Utsira, northwesterly 3 to 5, occasionally 6 later in south, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Forties, Cromarty, 4th, variable, mainly southwest 2 to 4, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Tyne, Dogger, variable 2 to 4, fair, fog patches developing, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Fisher, northwesterly 3 to 5, occasionally 6 later in east, mainly fair, moderate or good, occasionally poor. German Bight, variable, mainly northwest 2 to 4, fog patches developing, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Humber, Thames, variable 2 to 4, becoming east 3 to 5 later, fog patches developing. Moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Dover, east or northeast 3 to 5, increasing 5 or 6 later. Mainly fair, good, occasionally poor later. White, Portland, Plymouth, east or northeast 2 to 4, increasing 5 to 7 later. Fair, good. Biscay, east or northeast 4 to 6, fair, good. Southeast Fitzroy, northeasterly 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 near northwest Spain, fair, good. Northwest Fitzroy, Seoul, easterly or northeasterly 4 to 6, fair, moderate or good. Hunby, Fastnet, variable 2 to 4, becoming east 3 to 5 later, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Irish Sea, variable 2 to 4, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Shannon, Rockall, Malin, south or southwest 3 to 5, occasionally 6 in Rockall, mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Hebrides, Bailey, southwesterly 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8, until later in northwest Bailey. Occasional rain in Bailey, moderate or good, occasionally poor. Fair Isle, southwest 4 to 6, fair, good. Faroes, southeast Iceland, southwesterly 6 to gale 8, occasionally severe gale 9 at first in southeast Iceland. Occasional rain or drizzle, moderate or good, occasionally poor. And that's the shipping forecast. And for the general weather forecast, we turn now to Thomas Scheffenegger.
Jim, thank you. Well, high pressure is firmly in charge of the weather, and it's been, for most of us at least, a stunning day today. Sunshine, temperatures even approaching the mid-teens in a few areas in eastern Scotland and southeastern parts of England. But one or two areas were cloudy, overcast and quite grey, and that's quite often what happens when you have a stubborn big area of high pressure with light winds. Sometimes clouds get stuck in certain areas and it doesn't brighten up everywhere. And that really is going to be the story over the next few days. The vast majority of the UK in for plenty of sunshine, beautiful weather. It'll feel like spring in that increasingly strong sunshine. But some of us will be stuck underneath the cloud and it will end up being grey and chilly. So in the short term, we've got clear skies on the way for much of the country. Where the skies clear completely, there will be a touch of frost overnight, and that's likely almost anywhere across the UK. But I think the milder spots will be across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, perhaps 5 degrees overnight here, whereas in the Midlands and the east of England, around 1 or 2 with a touch of frost in rural areas. And then tomorrow, sunshine for many of us, but it does look as though Lincolnshire, East Anglia and maybe the southeast could end up being pretty cloudy well into the afternoon. And here it could be quite cool, 8 degrees in Norwich, but for many of us I think we're talking about at least 12 degrees in the sunshine. Back to you.
Thanks, Thomas. Now, here's Lauren Laverne.
My castaway is Claire Horton, the former chief executive of Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, who believes our four-legged friends are tougher than we think.
Rescue pets are not all damaged and broken. Yes, they've had a tough time, and yes, many of them have had horrific experiences in the past. But when they come out of a rescue, they come out with what I call a bit of a swagger.
Claire Horton, my castaway. Do join us to hear her Desert Island Discs tomorrow morning at 11.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Jane Steele. Good evening. The Chancellor is being urged to consider raising taxes in next week's budget to repair the public finances ravaged by the coronavirus pandemic. The Scottish National Party's leader at Westminster says there's no evidence that Nicola Sturgeon was involved in a conspiracy against her predecessor as First Minister, Alex Salmond. The funeral service has taken place of Captain Sir Tom Moore, who raised tens of millions of pounds for NHS charities. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak is being urged to raise taxes such as VAT and national insurance in the budget to address the strain which coronavirus has put on the public finances. The former Chancellor, Lord Clark, warned of a financial crisis if soaring levels of government borrowing were not tackled. Mr Sunak has said he wants to level with the public about the impact of the spending which has been required to protect jobs during the pandemic. Here's our political correspondent, Jonathan Blake.
Rishi Sunak has said there is more support to come in the budget, and he is under pressure to continue the furlough scheme and other policies put in place to keep the economy afloat. But he has also suggested there may be at least some measures to tackle the cost of vast amounts of debt the government has taken on to pay for its response to the pandemic. A rise in corporation tax, which companies pay on their profits, is possible. But the former Chancellor, Lord Clark, speaking on Today here on Radio 4, urged Rishi Sunak to go further and look at income tax, VAT and national insurance, which the Conservatives promised in the last election.
Every sensible person knows that this spending we've embarked on is taxpayer spending. This is the taxpayers' debt we're piling up now, and if we don't actually get it under control before inflation comes back and then interest rates go up, we'll face a financial crisis.
In contrast, many Conservative backbenchers argue the Chancellor should not raise taxes, insisting it's too early in the UK's recovery from the economic turmoil caused by coronavirus. The MP for Carlisle, John Stevenson, said Mr Sunak should focus on investment.
I just think this is too early right now. We'll have a much better idea in the autumn. But the important thing is everybody talks about tax and spend. The way out of this is actually to grow the economy. If we have a faster growing economy, a lot of the problems that we're talking about might become far smaller.
Labour too say now is not the time. In the budget there will be money for more traineeships in England, as well as help for home buyers with small deposits to get a mortgage. But the Chancellor's warning in an interview with the Financial Times that unprecedented borrowing has left the economy exposed, and that Tory MPs were elected because people trusted them to run the economy, suggests he will use the budget to at least prepare people for how he plans to rebalance the public finances.
The Chancellor will set out the details of funding for a new national infrastructure bank when he delivers his budget. The bank, which was first announced last year, will have £12 billion to lend, while the government guarantees another £10 billion in loans. Here's our business correspondent, Katie Prescott.
Getting the UK's carbon emissions to net zero and levelling up communities across the country are the two priorities for the new National Infrastructure Bank that will launch this spring. Based in the north of England, the UK-wide bank will invest in sectors such as renewable energy, carbon capture and storage, and electric vehicle charging points in order to stimulate the economy. It will look at areas of the country that have been seen as left behind by offering mayors and local authorities loans at low rates to fund infrastructure projects such as road and rail. The bank will replace some of the activities of the European Investment Bank, which no longer operates within the UK since Brexit. This isn't the first time a government has created a bank of this nature. The Green Investment Bank was launched in 2012, but was controversially sold 5 years later to reduce public debt.
The SNP leader at Westminster has said the party has full confidence in Nicola Sturgeon after her predecessor as First Minister, Alex Salmond, accused her of involvement in the conspiracy against him. Ian Blackford said there was no evidence against her and a line should be drawn under the row. Here's our Scotland correspondent, Alexandra Mackenzie.
In 6 hours of evidence, the former First Minister claimed there had been a malicious plan to remove him from public life, and he said he had no doubt his successor had broken the ministerial code of conduct. Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of lying to Parliament about when she knew about claims of sexual harassment against him. One committee member, the Conservative MSP Murdo Fraser, said it was the most extraordinary event he could recall in his almost 20 years in the Scottish Parliament. Mr Fraser said the claims were devastating for Nicola Sturgeon.
If even half of what he alleged yesterday turns out to be true, and we will get to the bottom of this very soon, then Nicola Sturgeon's position is untenable and she will have to resign.
When Mr Salmond was asked if she should step down, he said it was not up to him to suggest what the consequences should be. A spokesperson for Nicola Sturgeon said he had failed to provide any proof of a conspiracy against him and had conceded there was no such evidence against the First Minister. The SNP's leader at Westminster, Ian Blackford, expressed his support for Miss Sturgeon.
She's made it clear on a number of occasions that she does not believe that she's broken the ministerial code. I believe that to be the case as well. This will be put to bed and we'll be able to move on from it to make sure that we are dealing with the COVID crisis in the right way, and that we're having that discussion about what Scotland's future is. And I and my party have full confidence in the First Minister leading us to that destination of Scotland becoming an independent country.
But Mr Blackford refused to say if Nicola Sturgeon should step down if it is found that she has broken the ministerial code. Miss Sturgeon is due to give her evidence to the inquiry on Wednesday.
Scottish Labour has elected the first minority ethnic leader of a major UK political party. Glasgow MSP Anas Sarwar won 57% of the vote against 42% for his rival Monica Lennon. Mr Sarwar said he would focus on what united the country, not what divided it. One of the government's advisors on COVID-19 has warned people not to ignore the restrictions with the temptation of warm weather this weekend. Professor Susan Mickey, an expert in health psychology, says infection levels are still too high and the stay-at-home message remains necessary. Here's our health correspondent, Naomi Grimley.
With the weather warming up, large groups of people have flocked to parks, beaches and beauty spots around the country. Overall, infection rates have fallen significantly since the new year, but there's anxiety at Westminster about whether this will be sustained, especially once schools return on the 8th of March. There's particular concern that in some parts of England, infection rates are rising, perhaps in as many as 1 in 5 local authority areas. Professor Susan Mickey from University College London says the public needs to be encouraged to keep going with the current set of restrictions.
We're in sight of really being able to drive the transmission down, hopefully to keep it down, but it requires the combination of government policies, but also of all of us to pay attention.
One thing that officials fear most is that some of those who've had a first dose of vaccine will develop a false sense of security and prematurely return to pre-lockdown habits. It's for this reason they're reminding people that no vaccine is 100% effective. And until infection levels are brought very low, the threat of new variants emerging remains real.
A further 290 people have died in the UK within 28 days of a positive COVID test. Another 7,434 cases have been recorded. More than 19.5 million people have now received their first dose of a coronavirus vaccine. Dozens of protesters have been arrested by the military authorities in Myanmar in the biggest crackdown yet on anti-coup protesters. In one incident, a woman was shot. It's unclear how seriously she was hurt. Nick Marsh has been monitoring developments from Singapore.
The shooting occurred in the city of Moi Wan, near Mandalay. The young woman is thought to be a doctor protesting against the military takeover, who joined hundreds of thousands of others who've taken to the streets this month. Demonstrations also took place in other cities across the country. The security forces used tear gas, rubber bullets and light warning shots, but they haven't deterred protesters who have turned out for a fourth successive weekend. Myanmar's military government appears to be stepping up its response to the daily protests that have caused major disruption. More people have been arrested and injured. Some observers have noted the relative restraint on the part of the security forces up till now, but there are those in Myanmar who fear this could mark the beginning of a harsher response.
The funeral has taken place for Captain Sir Tom Moore, who raised almost £33 million for NHS charities by walking laps of his garden during the first lockdown. He died earlier this month, aged 100, after testing positive for COVID-19. Only close family members were able to attend the service. Charlotte Wright has this report.
A flypast from a Second World War RAF Dakota. Full military honours for the veteran and record-breaking fundraiser. His coffin was carried by soldiers from the modern equivalent of his wartime regiment. The moment was marked with a 14-gun salute. COVID restrictions meant only 8 members of Captain Sir Tom's close family could attend the service. His grandchildren delivered readings and tributes, as did his daughters Lucy.
You would always tell us, best foot forward. And
True to your word, that's just what you did last year. Raising a fortune for the NHS and walking your way into the nation's hearts.
And Hannah.
We are all so proud of everything you have achieved and promise to keep your legacy alive. Thank you for all the special times we've shared. Our relationship cannot be broken by death. You will be with me always.
There was music too, including Captain Sir Tom's duet with Michael Ball, You'll Never Walk Alone.
Walk on with hope.
The final year of Captain Sir Tom's life was extraordinary, inspiring millions across the world. You may be gone, his daughter Lucy said, but your message and your spirit lives on.
Now sport. England and Wales are facing each other in Rugby Union's Six Nations. Jojo Saka is here with the details.
It's actually Shabnam Yunus, Jill. Thank you. Rugby Union Six Nations is continuing today. Unbeaten Wales playing defending champions England in Cardiff, and it's the Welsh who currently lead 24 points to 17 just before 60 minutes. Earlier, Ireland beat Italy 48-10 in Rome for their first win of this campaign. Underway at the moment in the Premier League is Leeds against Aston Villa, and John Bennett is watching.
And it's Leeds 0, Aston Villa 1. Anwar El Ghazi with the only goal. Ollie Watkins slipped as he took a shot from outside the box. Fell to El Ghazi at the back post. Really good control and finish. He almost scored again not long after that, but Leeds have dominated the last 10 to 15 minutes. Tyler Roberts had a good chance. Decent save by the goalkeeper. No Jack Grealish for Villa, but they lead. Leeds 0, Aston Villa 1.
Leaders Manchester City beat West Ham 2-1 at the Etihad to extend their lead at the top to 13 points. It's their 20th win in a row in all competitions. Here's their manager Pep Guardiola.
Real tough. Few chances we create, we concede few too, but yeah, we knew it. A lot of games, every 2-3 days playing is not the terms just physical. And we knew it today after 10-15 minutes. Today it's time to suffer, and yeah, big congratulations the guys. It's not easy to do 14 games in a row in the Premier League, 20 in general.
West Brom beat Brighton 1-0 at the Hawthorns in a game that was marred with controversy over a disallowed goal, with the visitors also missing 2 penalties. In the Scottish Premiership, the champions Celtic scraped past Aberdeen 1-0 at home. They remain 15 points behind leaders Rangers, though. And the World Golf Championship has just resumed in Florida. Leader Brooks Koepka tees off in around 40 minutes' time and starts 11 under par, 1 shot clear of the field. England's Matt Fitzpatrick will resume 2 shots back on 9 under.
Shabnam Yunus, thank you. The physicist Professor John Mallard, known for his pioneering work in medical imaging, has died at the age of 94. Professor Mallard led a team at the University of Aberdeen which developed the first whole-body MRI scanner. Camilla McInnes looks back at his life.
John Mallard was appointed the first professor of medical physics at the University of Aberdeen in 1965. He made history in 1974 when he led a team at the university that built the world's first full-body scanner that used magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI. The technology is now used globally to detect a range of illnesses and injuries, including cancer and dementia. Professor Peter Sharp worked with John Mallard before succeeding him at Aberdeen University. He called him a determined visionary.
Without his enthusiasm, there would be many areas of medical physics where the development would have been much slower than it turned out. What he did was bring together people who could deliver on the visions that he had. There are many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who ought to be grateful to him for the work that he has done.
Professor Mallard also helped to develop positron emission tomography, commonly known as PET scans, which can produce detailed 3D images of the inside of the body.
The headlines again. The Chancellor is being urged to consider raising taxes in the budget next week as a way of sorting out the public finances. The SNP's leader at Westminster has rejected suggestions that Nicola Sturgeon was involved in a conspiracy to discredit Alex Salmond. The funeral has taken place for Captain Sir Tom Moore, who raised millions for NHS charities. BBC News.
With Jane Steele. In a moment, among the guests joining Clive Anderson for Loose Ends are Sheila Hancock and one Vincent Damon Fernier, otherwise known as Alice Cooper. Before that, here's someone simply but affectionately known as Paddy O'Connell.
Hello, Germany should remove the age cap on the Oxford AstraZeneca jab, and Angela Merkel should receive it on live TV. So says the head of the country's Immunology Society. Political intrigue and skullduggery in a small country. Why Denmark's TV series Borgen and Scotland's real-life news are linked by psychodrama. Kirsty Walks in Glasgow for our media review, joining Alistair Barry and Sonia Soda. We're at Dr. Pub, hoping for good news from Wednesday's budget, and we celebrate St David's Day next week with a radio first. Let's hope all of this can live up to expectations. Tomorrow morning at 9 here on BBC Radio 4.
Sure it will, thanks Paddy. Now on Radio 4, it's time for Loose Ends with Clive Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Hello and welcome to Loose Ends, and a big week for news with a clear roadway out of COVID opening up ahead of us, which we're hoping doesn't turn out to be the M25, so we go round in circles until we disappear up our own ring road. Opportunities opening up for all civil servants and experts at the moment, those who are engaged for so long in the tricky pre- and post-Brexit negotiations with the EU. Plenty of work for them now in the even trickier negotiations between Harry and Meghan and the royal family, and for that matter, between Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy, though not in the dispute between Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon. That's far too acrimonious and complicated for even expert civil servants to cope with. On Loose Ends this week, our discussion should be much more agreeable than that, even though I'll be talking to the godfather of shock rockers, Alice Cooper. Offstage he's more mild than wild, but even if he is in a mood to bite the heads off domestic animals or me, he can tell us about his latest album, Detroit Stories. Sheila Hancock is a Radio 4 favourite and of course a national treasure generally, but she plays a lot of ferocious characters these days, including a rather unsympathetic parent in the return of the big ITV crime drama Unforgotten. So I'll be careful not to provoke her when I talk to her in just a minute. Do you know when World Book Day is? Well, Hamza Arshad certainly does, and he's here to tell us about the 4th of March and his own book, Little Bad Man and the Radioactive Samosa. Our music today comes from Gizmo Varias and Georgia Van Etten. And Arthur Smith is with me. Who's your guest, Arthur?
Well, I shall be talking to star of improvised comedy Pippa Evans, who'll be telling me about her new book, Improv Your Life. And at one point, maybe we'll both pretend to be alligators or something.
I'm doing that now. But let's start with Sheila Hancock, Dame Sheila Hancock, CBE, who has been a star of stage, screen, TV and radio for more than 60 years. And whether you know her from the rag trade or A Discovery of Witches, the RSC, the National Theatre, stage musicals, reviews, Just a Minute or serious drama, we'll be pleased to see her in action in the new series of Unforgotten, ITV's crime series starring Nicola Walker and Sanjeev Bhaskar as police detectives. As in previous series, they come across a dead body of someone who came to a sticky end many years ago. In this case, a decapitated Millwall supporter left in a freezer way beyond his best before date. And Sheila, to coin a phrase, you play a grumpy old woman, an overbearing mother with no obvious connection to Millwall FC, but I reckon you killed him. Can you admit that at this stage, or does that give the plot away?
No, I can't. I can't at all. It's all part of the mystique, isn't it? A police series. Yes. You've each done about it. I did it because it's the most wonderful script. Actually, in a funny way, it's not only a police series. She writes in such detail about characters, and it's also an amazing look at policing as it is, genuinely is. Yes. The script.
You say here, that's Chris Lang who created it and writes the script. And there is a sort of this is the 4th series, and each series does the same sort of thing. It's a crime, we think, from way back. And then there's lots of people introduced at the beginning, and eventually we discover how they might be connected with the crime, may even have committed the crime, but that takes however many parts there are in the series. And so you are, I can't say much about you, but you're somebody's mother, and you're not a particularly nice mother to her, are you?
I'm a thoroughly nasty person. She's really vile, absolutely vile. I love it. I so enjoyed it, I can't tell you. Because it's when you're old, you get played with sort of nice ladies. They don't think old age can be nasty. You've either got to die or be senile or be lovely. And this woman is intelligent and vile. I love her.
And I mentioned in passing there that you're in A Discovery of Witches as well, where you're the most powerful witch in England, or it.
I am. So be careful. I can do very elaborate spells. I'm must say it was so difficult because it was all done with green screens and things. So you had to choreograph doing the witchy things with your hands to things that they were going to put on afterwards. So you've got a man saying, no, you can't weave like that. You've got to be up there. And it was, I have no idea what it looks like. I never watched myself, so I have no idea what the resulting thing is looking like. But it was very tricky to do. I tell you, most of these ordinary witches wouldn't have had the problems that I did.
So is that something you've always had? You don't watch or listen to the things you're in? Is that just...
No, I never do. I never do watch because I'm always so disgusted with what I do, and it's too late to do anything about it. So you can't. It seems pointless. I mean, John was so good because he could watch himself very cool-headedly. You know, he sort of says, well, I won't do that again, and things like that, as though it's somebody completely different.
All right.
But when I watch myself, I just in despair, and I think I'll never work again.
Well, and of course you're talking about John Thor, your late husband, and so
Yeah.
you're married to an actor. I think your sister was a performer. What is it about acting that has drawn you in? And, you know, I don't want to go on about it, but you've had a very long career doing this, looking busy the whole time.
Yes, I have. I'm a working actress. I really am. I have to earn a living. It's my job. It isn't my hobby. So I will say to people. So I've done some lovely rubbish in my time, but it's paid the rent. And people say to me, what would you like to do? And I'd like to do whatever the next job is that comes along, quite honestly. But I have no ideas about it.
In addition to acting, you wrote a novel. You wrote your first novel, or published your first novel at any rate, at the age of 82. That's pretty impressive.
I wrote my first book when I was 70, actually. I've written 5 books. I'm writing another one at the moment. I mean, it's partly to do with my age. When I was young, there weren't that many opportunities. There really weren't. I mean, you either were a teacher, which was the top of the thing, or a secretary, or a nurse, not a doctor, a nurse. You know. And if you were a bit mad, or if your sister happened to be on the stage, then you probably went on the stage, and that seemed the best option for me. I think that was more fun than some of the other things. So I didn't have the choice that most women nowadays have, and therefore I ended up doing it. If I had my time again, I probably would.
Well, you wouldn't be an actor, wouldn't be an actress if you had your time.
I don't know. There are other things that as I got older have interested me, like writing. You know, I wish I'd started writing when I was younger. If I'd gone to university and been given the courage to do it and felt I was educated. Now, I left school at 15, so I didn't think people like me could write, really. And in those days, one didn't, you know, from my background.
So the book you're writing, is this another novel or is it a non-fiction book?
It's a non-fiction book. It was meant to be a rather lovely, benign book about old age. It turns out to be a roaringly furious, angry, vicious book, which I don't think my publisher will want to publish.
Oh no, I think
I spent the last 3 years in a state of coiled up anger, one way and another, with what's happening to society and for working class. All sorts of things that made me upset.
Can I take you away from anger for just a moment? Because Just a Minute returned just a few days ago, a new series, and obviously in very different circumstances, because Nicholas Parsons is no longer there. But the first episode with Paul Merton.
Centurion, he tries to stand up Sinclair, he's tackled by Farrell. Another Wales score, and they know they're on the brink of another remarkable win. Driven on by Wales and their replacement loosehead Rodri Jones. Sheedy's deep on the sponsors logo, inside from Halaholo to Adams, who gets away, Josh Adams, and he tries to go round George Ford. On the 10-metre line, inside the English half, right below us here, our high vantage point. What a tackle coming in. Ellis Genge, the replacement, who's on for Macavinapola. Tipperick to Falatau. On this short side, George Ford doing the tackling. Wales have the ball. They have the possession, the territory, and the scoreboard at 27-24. Navidi sets it up. Now I think Gareth Davis might go to the boot, and we'll ask Reece Zammit to chase, who's standing out of play here to really get a run-up. Davis kicks, Reece Zammit now is up there, up against May. Good take by May, he practices those a lot. Those high balls, a big part of his game that he's improved. Now Ben Young, still no sign of Dan Robson with 11.5 minutes left. As Wales have the penalty! Massive moment in this game. England go off their feet, Wales were fairly on their feet, says the referee. The camera pans to Ellis Genge, and Sheedy's got a chance to move the gap out to 6, which will then say to England, come and score a converted try in the final 10 if you're good enough. Another big decision. We look at it again, Billy Vunipola, the tackling coming in by Wales. Over the ball they were, Genge just sealed off. Yeah, the Welshman looks on his feet and Genge's body position is down rather than up. And Sheedy has a crucial kick again at goal to put Wales out to a 6-point lead. Matt Dawson, you're shaking your head.
Well, yeah, it's difficult. The replacements coming on, they're keen, you know, you're pumped up. You've got to make an impact, but that's a bit headless. It's a bit headless for me, Reece. I don't know about, but, you know, they've got to have an impact, but you've got to be aware of what the decisions are going your way and where they're not, and you can't flop on your own play like that.
No, you got to have a feel for what the referee is giving and isn't giving, and clearly Pascal Gouzet today is very hot on England.
Sheedy, this might be the hardest of the three. 14 metres in from touch, right below us here. Up he steps, it's a thud, he's got the distance, he's got the accuracy. That is a nerveless kick from Callum Sheedy. 3 massive kicks from the Bristol player, and Wales have a 6-point lead as we go into the final 10, Matt Dawson, as more replacements come on.
On an upbeat cumbia vibe with accordion and brass, and I fell in love with it. I then added some Amazonian psychedelic guitars, and it was amazing to see how we transformed the song into something new. I hope it brings you a little sunshine wherever you are. And here is Sergio himself.
Hey everyone, this is Sergio Mendoza with Orquesta Mendoza, all the way in Tucson, Arizona. I want to thank Gizmo for inviting me to play on this track. It was a lot of fun working on A La Vida and turning it into more of a danceable cumbia style track. So I hope this is just the first track of many more to come together. I want to thank the BBC, Loose Ends, for playing the track. I hope you're all doing well. Nos vemos pronto.
Yo le pido a la vida un poquito esperanza. Yo a la vida le pido un poquito de amor. Yo le pido a la vida un poquito de gracia. Yo a la vida le pido que alumbre mi camino. Yo le pido a la vida, a la vida, a la vida, que alumbre mi camino. Yo le pido a la vida, a la vida, a la vida, que alumbre mi camino. Yo le pido a la vida un poquito de alegría. Yo a la vida le pido un poquito de luz. Yo le pido a la vida un poquito de fuego. Yo a la vida le pido que alumbre mi camino. Yo le pido a la vida, a la vida, a la vida, que alumbre mi camino. Yo le pido a la vida, a la vida, a la vida, que alumbre mi camino.
A La Vida featuring Sergio Mendoza from Gizmo Varias' album Out of the Darkness is available now, and Orquesta Mendoza's current album Curandero is also available now. So let's come to Hamza Arshad MBE, who is an author, comedian, actor, YouTuber, star of the internet, and anti-hate activist, whose latest work, Bad Man and the Radioactive Samosa, written with Henry White, is available now in book form. So, Hamza, I'm going to ask you about your book in due course, but first of all, let's talk about World Book Day, which I think is on the 4th of March. You're advocating on behalf of that today, aren't you?
Yeah, I've only been an author for, I think, about 2 years now, and I've realised how important and how big of a spectacle World Book Day is, especially in schools. So, yeah, just being a part of that magical day for young kids it's a great feeling. I really enjoy it. I was speaking to Penguin and Puffin, and they've have some great ideas virtually. There's a lot of virtual shows and a lot of virtual live reading. A lot of people are trying to be as creative as possible to ensure that the kids don't miss out this year, and then hopefully they won't.
So, you kind of mentioned that in passing there, really, because you're really a coacher turned gamekeeper, because you still provide a lot of stuff, online, on screens, which some people say distracts young people, especially boys, from ever opening a book.
I mean, when I was growing up, I'll be honest with you, I didn't read as much as I would have liked, and now knowing that and now being a part of the book world, I just feel that it's actually pretty cool to have such a large audience that I've gained on YouTube and other social media platforms, and being able to kind of spread the message to young kids and the younger generation that, hey, reading is actually really cool, you'll really enjoy this, and they could be like, oh, okay, I might give it a try, and hopefully that will encourage more and more young people to pick up a book, and hopefully encourage future authors maybe and writers.
Well, let's talk about your book, Bad Man and the Radioactive Samosa. Bad Man, or Little...
Every journey matters.
So, that's the sound a gospel choir makes after buying a used car from Kazoo. Yep, they bought it online and it's been safely delivered to their door at a time that suits them. Ooh, big finish there. Can you buy a used car online and get it delivered to your door contact-free? Kazoo, yeah you can. Kazoo, the safer way to buy a used car.
Hello, Specsavers here. We know sight and hearing problems don't go away during lockdown. So if anything's worrying you, our Ask the Expert service gives you access to helpful advice without leaving your home. Our experts are available online between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. for your sight and hearing questions. Of course, if you still want to come in and see us, our stores remain open in line with current guidance. Get in touch on our website or our Specsavers Ask the Expert Facebook group. We're open to care for you online and in store.
So we're sitting here with one of New Jersey's prodigal sons, the boss, my friend, Bruce Springsteen. It's good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you also.
You and I have spent a lot of time talking about what it means to be good.
Our audience looked at us and saw the America that they wanted to believe in.
We come from such different places. It turns out there's a lot of overlap.
Renegades, born in the USA, a new Spotify original podcast from Higher Ground. Listen free only on Spotify.
It's a tricky time right now.
And it's more important than ever to keep looking after the physical and mental health of you and your family.
So make sure you get a bit of exercise every day.
Get outside.
Go for a walk.
Try some YouTube yoga or just dance around the kitchen.
And don't forget to breathe. Take a few minutes over lunch to take some deep breaths and, above all, keep yourself calm. Find out more at mentalhealth.org.uk.
Fillet of fish from a dish, share box and evening frocks, Big Mac down a cul-de-sac and even under a drying rack, medium fries in rainy skies, or maybe cheeseburgers in the bath. How daft. Wraps through cat flaps, nugs on rugs, or perhaps a chicken sandwich to the river. Because yes, we deliver. Download Uber Eats or Just Eat and enjoy McDonald's at home. At participating McDonald's and locations only. See mcdonalds.co.uk/McDelivery to see if there's one near you. See Uber Eats or Just Eat app for full details. Delivery fee applies.
When your tenants have a burst pipe, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line landlord emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super plumber in 4 hours and guarantee they'll use the doorbell. We can also assemble locksmiths, glaziers, electricians and drainage engineers. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to 1,500 per caller. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with David Lammy.
It's David Lammy here. I'm going to come back to your calls on tax rises, but there have been so many calls on this very difficult issue and sad issue of dog theft that I'm going to continue taking calls on that. And I can see that we've got Melina in Barnet.
Hi.
Melina, I think you've got quite a worrying story, haven't you?
Yeah, on Thursday we got our beautiful dog Nala, who's a little Maltipoo who just turned 1.
So Thursday this week?
Yeah, Thursday last week, on the 18th of February, yes.
Thursday last week. And she's
she's a Maltipoo. Yeah, Nala the Maltipoo. We got her to go out with some of her dog friends because she's very sociable, and we were all in meetings, so we thought we'd call up her dog.
In the world over this scrum outdoors in